Hey guys. Oh man, I held my breath till that thing went on. It's way longer than I thought. I thought I could get an idea because I refuse to use a timer to see how long it takes for it to actually go live. Tonight we have a good night for you. Well, for some of you. For some of you, you're going to be disappointed. For some of you, you'll be excited. For some of you, you'll be confused. So welcome to my Tuesday. We are going to have Ben Quintana. Well, we have Ben Quintana of BlueDeathFeigning Beetles.com. We all know he's isopod.com. But we are not talking about isopods tonight. We are talking about blue death feigning beetles. We may wind up in isopod area since they're basically kind of similar in the jobs that they do. As far as I know, I could be proven wrong. So I think they're detrivores, but we're going to find out. So I know very little. I know that they're very hard to step on and that they pretend to be dead. So I call them fainting beetles, but that's just me. I don't expect that to catch on. So without further ado, let's bring on Ben. Ben.
What's going on, everybody?
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm going to give them a little trivia. So if you guys saw the page today, you'll see that Ben posted a link to, oh, God, he's gone. We made a joke about doing this to you guys, and he just did it to me. That's funny. That's funny.
There goes.
Was that you? Did you hit the wrong button?
I accidentally hit the X button when I was moving my mouse. Sorry. My bad.
I said we just made a joke about me booting him at some point in the show, and he did it to himself to mess with me, I think. So that was not planned, you guys. So what made me think of this is I just saw Ben at, well, not just, but at NARBC with a massive bin of blue death feigners, talking to a lot of people about them. And I overheard you get into a conversation about breeding. So I thought at least that's not what you're known for, but at least you know what you're talking about. So I think we can still have a good conversation.
I really wouldn't put a lot of weight on I know what I'm talking about. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, so I do bring a tub to most shows. Of a few hundred blue death feigning beetles that I keep at a time. And I mean, one of the funny things is I have a video. It's actually on my Instagram, and it went viral. It's got 500,000 views on it. But it's basically makes you read because on the edge of it, it says, "Please don't touch me, because I will deposit eggs under your skin, and I will they will hatch it, eat you butthole first." And then it says, "Just kidding, just kidding. Just wanted to hear you, or just wanted to see you the mouth butthole." And it went viral. I mean, it's got a lot of views and a lot of laughs, but it's a joke. But there are some people that take it seriously. But that tub in itself, even without that, brings a lot of people because they love them, and they're very easy to care for. They just like as you mentioned, they are dentivores. They'll eat any dead material. One of the cool things that actually brings them all to the yard is dog shit and cat shit. It's an easy way to collect them when you're out in the wild and you want to see if they'll come out. You can bring a bag of dog shit and throw it out there, wait about 30 minutes, and they'll come out looking for it.
Get out of here. Blue death feigners are poop beetles too?
Oh yeah. They're not the historic dung beetles, but they will eat a ton of dog shit.
We're gonna be talking dung beetles later in the month, actually. So in like 2 weeks. I didn't know that they came out for that. That's funny.
Yeah, and they some odd reason, I don't know what it is, the receptors of the smell or whatever it is, or maybe it's the food that the dogs eat that they love, but dog shit gets them coming, gets them going. So
that is wild. So you guys heard it first. That's your way to lure them in. So just bring out your dog crap and get yourself a pile of blue death feigners.
Yeah.
Rinse them off first. Rinse them off. Bring some wipes. I think they're a good thing to have it exposed because it's easy to hand one to somebody and not worry about it.
Like, yeah, I mean, the kids love them. Even people that aren't used to them, and once they see them, and a lot of the comments that you'll get are like, "Oh, they're blueberries, little blueberries with legs." And yeah, they do. They kind of got that white chalkiness, which is a protective coating on them. And once they get wet or they get into a humid area, that chalkiness and the blueness goes away. They turn black, but it comes right back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it was, is it like a waxy?
Yeah, it's a waxy coating that they secrete and they get it on their exoskeleton.
like sunscreen, basically. Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
I guess you can, but I mean, it would be interesting. I haven't seen them during the day. It's usually you only find them at night. So it's wonder if it's
Oh,
got something to do with just the environment, and late at night when it's just a moonlit night, for whatever reason. I like I said, I'm not an expert on them, but it would be interesting to kind of figure out why and find out why they had that coating on them.
that's wild. That's wild. Yeah, I want to know that now. I'm going to be asking a lot of people. I know a lot of people that keep them. I don't know a lot of people that do anything more than keep them. Like they have them until they die, and then
Yeah.
that's it.
And I mean, they've got a long lifespan. So even if you get them, I mean, it's the difficult part now, or the interesting part now, is that a lot of the blue death feigning beetles that are out there, they are wild caught. They do produce on their own out in the wild to a point where when I guess you can say, quote unquote, harvest them or capture them in the wild. There
Yeah,
hasn't been really a study to see what the significance is, from them being wild caught, as far as it being any hit to their population. But I mean, for the most part, anytime you go out there, they're out there from year to year. So I don't see um, it being a bad thing.
yeah,
Not to have them bred in captivity, but I mean, even attempting and breed them in captivity has been done successfully. Not by a lot, but there have been times and cases where it has been done. Have I done it? No. I mean, I don't have
sure.
the time. I don't have the patience. I'm limited in the space that I could do it in, just because of the numbers that I do have. But I mean, long term project, yeah, I could probably take it on and see what happens, and see if I can figure out what the deal is. Case in point, you mentioned when we were at NARBC, and I was talking to it was actually a lady that has a zoo. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but we talked in depth about what she was doing, and she was like, "I've bred them." So I picked her brain, and I said, "Well, walk me through it and let me know, and I'm interested in hearing what you're doing."
Yeah,
So basically, what she has is she had a colony of, I think it was like 3 or 4, and she kept them in a larger container, which is optimal. The substrate was dry, which is normally what you do. And then what she did is she put a large piece of rotting wood, like soft wood, like you normally would get for
okay,
like springtails and some of the isopods, that like that soft, spongy wood. You put it in there, and basically you leave it in there. And then once she said she saw the females starting to eat the rotting wood, she mimicked their monsoon season. So she soaked one side of the tub, including that one end of the log, and she soaked it for a few days. And then what
okay,
she said she saw was the female would crawl underneath that log, and she was depositing her eggs. And she just let it sit there and let it sit there. And she said months went by, and I kept it moist, and she popped the log over, and before she knew it, she looked at it, she had a larva. So
that's
I think
wild.
I think the thing is that making sure that you have it set up correctly to begin with, and they're feeding, and then the other point being that you have to have a male and a female, which is not very
Sure.
difficult to tell, and then mimicking the fact that they love rotting wood. And she said what they were doing, what the female was doing, is she was chewing up the wood. She would make it into a ball. She would deposit underneath the log, and then she was depositing her eggs inside that wood that she had chewed up. So she was
Okay,
making basically, quote unquote, the cocoon, or the casing that
sure.
they deposit eggs in, and then the larva will start eating that casing as it grows, and then it pupate through and become a beetle. So it's really the only thing that she said that she was doing different. She didn't, go into the idea that most people think, well, they're from the desert area, so you during the day it's in the high 90s, sometimes
Yeah,
reaching up to 100 degrees, and then at night cools down into the 60s and whatnot. She didn't do any of that, which is a surprise. But it was more along the lines of just mimicking the monsoon season, like you would with anything. I mean, frogs, case in point, you put them in a rain chamber.
yeah,
Um, you
yeah.
know, isopods, you put them on one end. Depending on what species it is, you soak one part of the container, and you mimic their environment with the humidity. So it's almost the same thing. You're just doing it right after she starts eating the wood and going into the reproduction phase for 'em.
Now my brain is my brain always talking to guests. My brain is like, how could I set this up? I
Oh,
have
believe me,
like,
I thought of the same thing too. I'm like, man, do I want to do this? And
right?
like I said, it's not impossible, and I still have, I mean, probably a good amount of death feigning beetles right now. It's just whether or not I want to sit a tub off to the side and let it sit there for however long.
Months and months and months just to see if you can do it or they can do it
You
without.
know, and the gestation period, you know, I've heard can be upwards of 9 months. So
Oh God.
yeah, and I mean, hats off to anybody that wants to try it and is successful at it, and you know, even if they want to make a detailed uh, writing or even you know illustration of what they're doing, and if it follows through, hey, you know, accolades upon accolades because people will be knocking on your door and in your inbox trying to ask you questions on how they can do it.
Oh, Menagerie says she's gotten larvae but never gotten them to pupate. Um, yeah, I think what you're saying is true. We kind of talked about this before the show, but so many people either have the information or don't share it, um, and it's a detriment to the hobby. I don't think, in my opinion, like you being able to do something doesn't affect me being able to do it. Like,
Yeah.
what are you going to hoard death feigning beetles as your own? Like, no one, like you said, no one cares. They're not
Well,
endangered in any sense. You can just walk out with a piece of dog shit and collect them till the sun comes up.
well,
And
the thing about them too is in mass when they're big numbers,
yeah,
they're cannibalistic. So they're
oh
gonna eat
wow,
all the eggs and they'll go through the substrate just looking for food. So I mean, trying to breed them in a you know anything small or even a large container where you have a serious number of them, it's just not going to happen.
so you're
You're
talking like maybe a 30 gallon or something for like 4 or 5
yeah yeah I
adults.
mean,
Let them do their thing, and
yeah, like a
then
true bioactive, you
wow,
know, of you know being able to have them in there by themselves and let them do their thing and not disturbing the substrate and feeding them and like I said, mimicking the monsoon season.
and then what temperature are you keeping? You just keep them. So what are you keeping them at when you keep them?
So, you know, just from previous conversation, my facility stays anywhere between about 68 to about 78. Right
Okay,
now, it's a little bit cool, and I turned off the heaters already. So, I mean, over the last probably 5 or 6 days, it's gotten down into, you know, I think like 62 in my facility.
okay.
But I mean, that they're still doing fine, and I haven't had any issue with them getting that low in temperature. I would think that would be a lot lower during a certain part of the season for them in a desert area. It does dip down. I mean, sometimes I'm pretty sure
Sure.
even in summer months it gets down into the 50s in the you know in the high desert. Um, so I just you know like I said, the temperatures that I have them at, I don't foresee if it were that I would have to mimic the season as far as the hot and dry period.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
I don't think it doesn't sound like you would have to. Like you said, you're a friend who
Yeah, like I
bred
said,
them.
I don't think you have to either. Um, it's just a matter of putting them together, setting them up, and then let them do their thing for, like I said, 9 months.
Yeah, 'cause it sounds like well, from what you're saying and what I've seen different things. Different people keep them different ways, and I think that's hard too because they're so hardy that it's hard. It's probably hard to tell like what the correct way is fully. Like
Yep.
everybody in every hobby has like you have to keep this, 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 and this. For each species, there's one guy that has that checklist. Um, so there's not any guide for that on blue death feigners. Well, it
No,
probably is, but who
I
knows if he's
mean,
right?
in my tub, I keep them in a 28 quart tub, you know, that you get from any one of the regular, you know, box stores.
Yeah.
I keep the top on it. Substrate is completely bone dry. I use in that tub, I use charcoal. So I've got big pieces
Okay.
of charcoal in there. I don't have any dry wood, but the substrate's there. I will put new substrate in there probably every 6 weeks. I'll dump a handful of new substrate because they do eat through some of it. They eat the leaves that I put in there, so I use live oak, Texas live
Okay.
oak leaves. They'll eat through that, and then I feed them uh, the specific food that I make myself, which is it's actually on my website now. It's called Pod Delight. They it's a high protein diet.
Okay.
They go through that, and then every now and again I give them either carrot or cucumber, and that's pretty much it.
That's
Outside of
so
that,
easy.
they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
Now I got to check out your damn pod food. I keep 7 species, and I keep trying to like support everybody by trying their products.
Send me your address. I'll send you some samples.
Oh well, I'll definitely do that. And we'll talk about it.
And I mean, I'll do that with anybody here on the chat. If you guys want to hit me up at either isopod.com, or you can send me an email, ben@isopod.com, and just send me your address, and I'll get you guys some samples.
Nice. You saw that here, guys. I'm glad you made it to whatever minute we're on. Minute 8.5, and we're already getting freebies, you guys. What was I going to ask you? I had a specific thing. We talked about longevity. So what kind of longevity are we talking about out of adults? Because
15, 18 years?
Jesus. That's an awesome thing for beetles, because I feel like a lot of the really cool ones live like 6 months as an adult. And then you're raising this grub for 2 years. This gross grub that you never see because it's dangerous. Like the Goliath beetles. I want to get into them, but not to see it for 6 months, maybe.
Yeah, and that's a weird thing too. I mean, even at that, like those grubs, like the big grubs, I mean, you see people pulling them up and taking pictures with them, and then it's like, what now? Like you've disturbed them. Are they going to go back and get back into their little casing and start eating their casing till they pupate? Or is it a point where you just wanted to pull them out and now they're going to die? I mean, I'm not a beetle expert, so I don't know if it's okay to do that or not. Personally, me, I don't. If I were to do something like that, I would figure I'm killing it, and I'm just going to leave them alone.
I hope there are people I know that have taken those pictures that I know are, if not experts, borderline experts, that they know what they're doing. So I trust that they know what they're doing, but I hope that kind of thing doesn't encourage other people to do it that don't know what they're doing. And they're like, I lost all mine and I did everything you said. Well, that's what gets me in trouble all the time, is I see stuff that like big names do, and then I do it, and they're doing it because they know what they're doing, and I don't. And so I handle things, or have 1,000 ants escape into my house, or whatever, whatever happens. Isopods get loose. Tarantula run up my leg that I didn't know was loose. Yeah. All kinds of stuff.
None of that gets loose. None of that.
Not ever. Don't tell my wife.
Never.
Yeah. She decided to watch one episode where I was joking about having my tarantula, and that's how she found out. I woke up to her staring at me. You mean you have a tarantula in this house? And I was like, what? I saw your show. I was like, God damn, no. That's because I make fun of you in the show. That's part of the bit. It's not all. Margot's right here. She's doing well. No, you probably don't want to do that. I was thinking of cohabiting these crazy beetles with a tarantula, but that's probably not good for anybody involved.
I don't see a problem with it. I mean, the exoskeleton's so hard that I don't think they'd. I mean, unless it's, I think, an 8-inch T. sturmii, or blondie or something like that, or salmon pink. I don't think the fangs would be able to penetrate. So, and then again, they're dentivores. The death feigning beetles are dentivores, so they're not going to try to eat the tarantula, and more than likely the tarantula is going to run and hide before anything. But they're a cleanup crew. I mean, really, and the way most people keep, that I would think they would keep tarantulas, is for the most part their habitats can be dry, so it's almost a perfect match. I mean, it's the same thing. People set up bioactives with them using for bearded dragons, because the same thing, the dry environment. I've heard people use them for hog noses, and some of the smaller snakes. So I don't see it as an issue, because again, they're not the aggressive feeder that they're going to go after them, because again, they're just a dentivore looking for dead material.
My only concern would be that they would stress the spider, honestly.
Yeah,
I don't know. You could try it. It wouldn't hurt anything to check it out if you monitor it. Keep it, it's not like the thing's going to stress out overnight.
I could see a bearded dragon going after it, but again, it's the exoskeleton of the death feigning beetle so tough, and then on top of that, the legs have the little bitty spikes. They probably spit it right back out. And honestly, I don't know if they taste well. They taste good, or that's maybe what that coating is. It's just a foul tasting, because most beetles they put out when they get attacked, they put out that really cyanidic smell or taste that they just get spit right back out. So
that's true too.
Like I said, I've heard people keep them with bearded dragons. Now, I don't know the size of the bearded dragon. It could be medium size versus an adult. I could see an adult going after more than anything. But I think bearded dragons are pretty smart that eventually they're going to go like, yeah, I've tried eating that. It don't taste good.
That would be, everybody's got a horror story or a hypothetical horror story. I don't know that anyone's tried it enough to know one way or another. But hey, guys, if you know what the deal is with that waxy coating that makes the blue death feigners blue.
Menagerie says he's going to go lick one and see what it tastes like.
Yep. Oh, she totally is. Go get him. Go get him, Menagerie. See, if I had one, I would lick it right here on the camera. I ate fish food. I ate fish food last week because somebody's boyfriend who wasn't even watching the show said it was delicious. And I was like, it is not. It is not delicious, you guys.
I think it's probably the same thing. Like most people, there are a lot of people that, try cilantro. It tastes good, but there's quite a few people that have tried and they say it tastes like soap. So
I have the good taste gene for cilantro, thank God. I don't know that it's the same thing. I'm pretty sure 99% of the people that try fish flakes will agree with me that they're not good. I mean, it wasn't wretched. I've definitely had worse things on this show. But Coke Dream, that's probably the worst thing still on the show. If you find Dream flavored Coke, buy it for someone you hate. But yeah, so they're detrivores. You're still giving them good protein though, so that's good.
Yeah,
because I heard that they can get protein hungry, and you're talking about them being cannibalistic, so that's got to be an issue.
Yes, I mean, like I said, the food that I use myself, it's a 22 to 24% protein base, so you get a high protein diet.
Okay, all right, and then you got your fresh, your dry. Now, they're housing. You have yours in a big tub altogether. Right, but you're kind of like a temporary home for them. You're not like a breeding facility.
That's what they stay in all the time. I mean, even when I have 200 or 300 at a time, they stay in there. I haven't had any issues with them. Like I said, I give them a lot of leaf litter, and they'll just crawl through it, hide in it. They seem to be more active at night. They seem to be more active in the winter when I have the heaters on, where the heaters are blowing. They'll crowd that side of the tub wherever they feel the heat. So they're for the most part, the senses on them are great because they know what to do. And the same thing when I feed them, in mass, they're like a big ball of just blueberries, just trying to eat and everybody's got their own, way of getting in there. And they just, I don't know if you've ever seen the video of the goats, the little baby goats, when they put the bottles in it.
Yes.
Same thing. So when I go to feed them, they just all of a sudden just like big ball of death feigning beetles.
Now I'm just trying to imagine you with like these tiny bottles, these little tiny beetle-sized nipples. Just put them in a row. You open the gate, flying out. What a great video that would make. So yeah, if you guys don't know Ben, he's a big guy. He's not that tall, but he's a solid dude. So that would be really funny to see like actual man hands trying to make these little baby bottles. Also a great hugger. If you see him at the show, give him a hug. I tried to hug so many people, I gave up, and then Ben just came on in. It was beautiful. Not one of those sassy, shitty side hugs either. The one arm, no,
man,
this is a real hug, man. It was solid. So yeah, best hug of the show for sure. NARBC recommend, charge $1.
I should. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna make a shirt. I'll make a shirt that says, it'll say free hugs on the back.
Oh, free hugs. Pay for the bugs, stay for the hugs.
There you go. It's a good one.
Boom. That's free. I'll give you that for free. I can't get over how popular these things are, and they're like.
I can't either. Honestly, there's some shows where there's probably maybe like 2 or 3 shows where I walk out of a show and I'm like, man, I didn't sell any. Because most times when I'm at a show and I've got a good quantity of them, sometimes I'm selling 10, 20 at a time.
Wow.
I think I have a customer that comes to a specific show all the time that runs a pet store, and they buy 50 of them at a time. And I'm just like, okay, so it's the popularity of them. And I think it's this, just to watch them, they have a personality. And then on top of that, the longevity of them, they'll be around for a while, regardless. just because it's even if
Yeah.
I don't know how to age them. It's not really size or anything like that. But for the most part, I mean, they last quite a bit of time. I mean, even the ones that I've had this group that I have now, I've had for the better part of about 2 years, and
Okay.
I think I'm down to like 40.
Oh
And
wow, so it's time to boost those numbers.
those are rookie numbers.
Those are a great scene in a great movie. Now I really want them. I didn't know they lived that long. That's kind of why I got a tarantula. And I don't know for sure that she's a girl, but I want her to be a girl so I can have her for like 20 years.
One of the
But
questions on there is pricing. I mean,
oh
so
yeah,
for the most part, at shows, I mean, I see them anywhere between 15 to I've seen them up towards of $30 at a show. I sell them on my website. I sell them for $12 for a single one. You buy a 10 lot. 10 lots are $80, so you get them at $8 a piece. And then at the shows, I sell them for $8 a piece.
yeah, your prices are really reasonable. Didn't you have like you buy 5 or something and they're a little less? Was that you or is that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the time too is if a customer comes up and they're like, "I'm a teacher," I'll give them a teacher discount. Usually if you buy 5, I give you an extra one for free.
Okay.
And then same thing, like buy 10, you get 12. So it just depends. But even at that, it's like even the pricing at that, which for the most part people are like, "Man, that's so cheap." I still get people, "Hey man, if I buy 10, will you give them to me for 6?" I'm like, I mean, $8 is, I mean, it's unheard
To
of.
be fair, that is unheard of. That's a really good price. To be fair, I always try to haggle. I was never like, this is the first con I was at. This is the first convention I was at that people knew who I was, and I didn't know who they were. They were like, "Oh, I'm so and so. I watch your show," and I was like, "What?" It happened to me 4 or 5 times, and I didn't know what to do with that. But at the same time, I was telling my buddy about it the next day. He's like, "Did you try to throw your weight around to get better prices from people?" I said, "No, none of the dealers know who I am. It's just the random people there at the crowd." So it was funny to see, but I love to have, because they know that I'm always trying to get a better deal on everything. I'm always trying to get a better price.
I mean,
So
it's in our nature. I mean,
yeah,
we always want to haggle, which is not a big deal. I mean, but
yeah, it
really,
is
like,
kind of like, really, man. I will advise any dealer watching this, a haggler that's serious understands your price is good. They already know your price is good. They're trying to get a better deal for themselves. They will accept you saying like, "Nah, man, this is already," you can tell them flat to their face, like, "This is the best deal you're going to find here."
yeah. I
Or
mean, usually
among
I
the
tell
best
them,
deals.
for the most part, like, because I don't do any local shows, but if I'm at Tinley or if I do Pomona or even Texas shows, I'm like, "Look, I just need gas money to get home, so $8, $8."
I charge 10 if I need jerky on the way home, right? So yeah, guys, try to haggle, but don't be offended when someone says no.
Yeah.
Regurgitated fluid. What?
I've never had that. I've never seen
A
anything like
couple of
that.
mine have done this. Can I make this bigger? Nope.
I think the thing to draw for a lot of people, Doug was saying, that's the ability to breed them, and then there's the rarity of breeding them. I think the big draw it shows, believe it or not, is when people ask me, it's like my selling point is because when people say, "What are these? What?" I don't know what they are. I just tell them they're called blue death feigning beetles. They're like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Well, have you heard of feigning goats?" And they're like, "Yeah." And at that point, I'll pick up like 3 or 4, and I go, "Well, these are the feigning goats of the insect world," and I'll chalk them up like dice, and then I'll show them to them, and they're all dead, playing like they're dead, and then they're like, "Wow!" So it's, I think that's the big draw, especially for kids, because when they walk up and they see them, and they're like, "These are them," and they want to see them do it. It's like, that catatonic state that they go into, and then it's the next thing is, well, how long they do that, and it's like, it could be 30 seconds, it could be a couple minutes. It's just really up to them.
Now I want to get them. Like, I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons guy. I want to paint little numbers on the back and then roll them out. Like, oh, look at that. That totally went into my head. I'm sorry. It had to go there. Probably have to clean them off first. I don't know. I am not doing that. But that would be really funny to pull those out of a dice bag because they're tough. They can handle it.
Where are you at, Menagerie?
Menagerie is in.
She has to do a show, an expo there. I don't know where there is.
I want to say Oregon, but that's not right. It's Oregon and Nevada.
Nevada. I actually did it. I did Vegas last year.
Oh, nice.
And I used to do Sacramento. I did Sacramento probably before the pandemic. I did Sacramento, Portland. Wow, that's a haul.
Oregon. I wasn't even close.
I did Sacramento when I lived in Texas, and that was a 30-hour drive. That was fun. And that was middle of the winter. I think we drove back from Sacramento, went through Wyoming, and then we hit negatives. And it was like I had to pull over and emergency stop and get a hotel room because the vehicle wasn't staying warm and had a bunch of animals, and that was a tough one.
That's not good. That's not good. And we also see like now I saw your thing. Who's breeding all these vending machines that everybody has these little pods of things in? Because every person at the show had these weird little bubble vending machines with stuff in them, and I hadn't seen that till this year.
Oh yeah, so I mean, I get mine from Japan, and people always ask me like, "How are you getting these?" And I'm like, "He's got to find a vendor and pay the fee and get them over here." And they're like, "Well, how much is it?" And I'm like, "They run me $600 a piece."
There was a guy at Tinley. That's all he had. His whole booth was like 40 or 50 of these things with different stuff in them. It was like $10 a token, and someone took 4 tokens. I was like, what is happening right now? Yeah. I'm all for mystery boxes, but holy mackerel.
Well, my thing is that even with those machines, so I pay $600 for a machine, and then I have to pay for the toys, and then so I even selling them until I sell $600 worth of toys.
Yeah.
In overhead, then I haven't even paid for the machine. So it's like,
well, then you're carting them around, and they don't look like they weigh that much, but still.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, it's a draw. People love them. It's and it's the same thing. Some shows I could sell a ton of toys out of one, and some of them I don't sell anything. But it's it's just a draw. It's just one of those things.
And it is. Yeah, I will verify it is a draw. Are the beetles that you sell captive bred?
No, okay. I don't have any captive bred beetles. Those are all wild caught.
I don't really know. Like you said, I don't know of anyone that's breeding them on a scale that you can sell them. Like not a breeder. They're if they are, they're doing it like a hobby thing or a project. It's not like production.
Yeah, I would think you would have to have a facility where you're having, probably, 20 to 30 tubs and just pairs and seeing how many you can produce in a season, and then going from there and or possibly doing like trio, so a 1.2, and seeing how many will produce out of it, after a season. Yeah. Once you get it down, to be able to figure out if you can do it in mass to a point where you're selling them. Other than that, I think even if you're producing them, they're going to be such a small number that they're just going to be yours forever.
Which is still kind of cool for bragging rights. But then again, publish or post your results or your process, like share the love so other people can try too. Because I will say, the only hard part's bringing them to adulthood, because in your bin of the 300 or whatever that were at NARBC, they were DTF. There was a lot of action going on in that bin.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, even at that, you'll see the females wanting to drop eggs, and because it's basically what they do is they walk and they'll squat down and almost looking like they're going to take a crap. But what she's doing is she's digging down and she's dropping her eggs into the soil. And then, like I said, there's so many of them that they just cannibalize all the eggs.
So at that point, it's just her dumping it. Like, she has nowhere else to put it. She's just getting rid of it. Yeah.
I mean, it's just them being instinctual.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I think I need to get a few and maybe try and see if I can make it happen, just to see as a project.
Yeah.
Because I definitely can do that.
I don't challenge anybody. It's really if they want to do it. The attempt is always there, and it's what's it going to hurt? I mean, other than you getting other beetles and then bragging rights. But like
it's cheap. They're not expensive. They live forever, whether you're breeding them successfully or not. You're going to have them as pets forever. Yeah. You said they have personalities, so they're fun to watch. So it's not just a tub of dirt. Like a lot of species we have are isopods. You have them stuck away. I'm a big display guy. Mine are all in translucent tubs, maybe they're translucent, that you don't see them until you go do your checks.
I think the key is just setting them up correctly, and then the dry the rotting wood, keeping it a little bit dry, and then mimicking the monsoon season. So even if you look at like Southern California, what their rainy season looks like, and
Yeah.
just it doesn't have to be the same the same time of year, but the same thing. So like you could keep it dry for 30 days, and then after 30 days, go like, all right, I'm gonna flood this side of the tank, or I'm gonna flood this piece of wood and see what happens, and
Yeah.
and then wait.
I wonder if you could set it up to do that specifically too. I'm thinking, my brain is going, like, can I come up with a setup? I need to do more studying. Like with their wild conditions. There's not a whole lot on that either.
Aaron was asking where I get my hats at.
He was asking where you get your hats done.
Yeah, so usually what happens is when I go to Thailand to bring an import in, I stop off, they have a big market there, and I pick out about 50 hats, and they just do them all there on site. It takes about a day. And then I come back the next day, pick up 50 hats, and they're embroidered, and bring them home.
That's awesome.
And I'm actually down to, I think I got like 3 left on the website. So I need to restock here pretty soon.
I got to get to Thailand and get some embroidered hats made.
Well, I mean, it keeps the cost way down. I mean, if you don't figure in the flight and everything else,
I mean, you're there anyway. You said you're on your way back. It's not like you went there for hats.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like you stop for rice cakes. Like you don't fly to Thailand for rice cakes. You just happen to find them, Yeah. Or it's like a side trip. Like I don't go to Grand Rapids, Michigan to eat at Two Beards Deli, but I eat there every day that I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So
Luch, I think there are some on there. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure I checked my stock the other day on the website, and I'm pretty sure I have.
What did Doug do? Put a dead gecko in. Oh, he fed his BDFDs, his BFGs. It's a lot of letters. He fed them a dead gecko, and they savaged that thing up.
Yeah, I think I got a total of 10 on the website, but I've got a few more, so I can up the stock on there. But I have them on the website still listed.
And then Sandy wants to ask if they fight. I don't
think that, like I said, so they don't appear to be aggressive towards each other. I think it's more along the lines that the males just usually run around and they just grab females and start, doing their thing for the most part. I think the thing is that it's just a cannibalism. Like I said, they're constantly on the prowl looking for something to eat. And if you feed them enough, I don't even think you can feed them enough to a point. I mean, I've put apples in there before when I first started, and they devour apples. And I think it's more the sugar that they like. But I've never had an issue where I have food in their tank that gets moldy or old. They're constantly eating.
So they'll just find whatever. They don't search out the eggs or the pupa. They're just eating as they go, which is detrivore life. They're kind of like bearded dragons. They're just garbage cans looking to eat, and that's it. They have such a bad rap, but it's so deserved. Now you were talking substrate earlier. What is the substrate that you have them on besides like the charcoal and the leaves? Like what's the substrate?
So it's all organic, and then it's got it's really a heavy base of just like a bark wood, and then just organic, just topsoil. The topsoil I get for them is from Home Depot because it's got a lot of sand in it. They just like that sandy loam. I mean, because again, they come from the desert area, so that sandy part is something that they're drawn to. But I think I put all the organic pieces in there because again, they're, from my perspective, they eat the live oak leaves, so they're looking for material to actually chew on. So that's why I give them like the fine bark is really what it is that I put in there with the topsoil.
That makes sense. And you're not doing like cork hides or anything like that. You're just using the leaf litter and the charcoal chunks.
That's it.
You're talking about like natural burned wood charcoal.
Yeah, I mean it's lump charcoal. I mean big pieces that are in there and they're just stacked.
That was my isopod display tanks, had those stacked up like shelves.
Yeah, and I do that mostly because When I go to feed them, if I'm feeding them anything that's if I feed them outside of the dried food that they normally eat. So like if my concern is that it's going to start to smell, so the charcoal's in there to keep the smell down.
I got it. That's smart. That's smart. I love this. I just love that there's so many tetrivores on demand now for whatever hobbyist we have. What are some questions I'm missing here? You're keeping tons and tons together, so that's not a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, in that 28 quart tub, I'm not going to even joke. There's been a time where I've probably had 800 of them in that one tub, and I've never had an issue.
Wow. That's pretty excellent. Because when they're adults, then they're not, once they're adults, they're not even molting anymore, right? They're done.
No,
that's it for them.
And it's almost like they create their own mini communities, because I'll have some corners where they get balled up and they're just kind of like a rolling mass.
Yeah.
And in another corner, there'll be another ball. And then on the sides, they'll just be kind of like just stacked up on top of each other, just running around. And I mean, if I felt like there was an issue that was, where I'd see like maybe they were like trying to bite off each other's hands and feet and heads, then I'd move them and I'd separate them, make their own tubs. But outside of that, I mean, it seems to me like they're happy enough to be kept together that they're all just running around doing their own thing.
That's a great life. What a great life to be a beetle and just be okay with all that. I would lose my mind. Mm-hmm. How deep is the substrate that you're keeping? Beetle guy's asking, what's the substrate depth?
Inch and a half, 2 inches.
So nothing. And I'm sure there's people that are like, you need 6.
And like I said, the idea, if you're going to breed them, I mean, you want to keep as deep substrate as you possibly can, because you just don't know what they're going to do. I mean, if the female decides that she wants to burrow down and deposit eggs, then, she needs enough room to do that. Or if you want to put your piece of spongy wood in there and you want to dig it down and bury it partially, then so be it. I mean, I think that any of the options are possible when it comes to breeding. Now, when it comes to keeping, I just do it differently.
Well, if you're just keeping them and they don't need it, like they don't need to burrow, so they're not a burrowing beetle, essentially. Like they just kind of roam, don't they, or find a way under a rock during the day?
Yeah. So I mean, they'll be during the day they'll find some shade spaces, so they'll be underneath different things, rocks, leaves, anything that they can keep themselves safe from the sun.
Right, because they're living in that crazy area. So everything in these guys sounds super easy. Does anyone? It's like the shortest thing ever. Does anybody? I feel like we covered it all. Does anyone have any other questions about blue death fainers? There's no more.
Is it time to talk isopods now?
It probably is. I'm guessing we're going to pop into isopods, which we kind of have like 4 times. They do love a heat source. Yeah, we keep one end hot.
Yeah, like I said, during the winter when the heaters are going, they find the hot spots and they'll congregate in that corner of their tank.
Yeah, I would definitely keep one side of it, probably one half.
I don't use any heat lamps. I have the heat sources I have are the oil filled heaters, and then I have like I've said before, I have fans in my shop that constantly circulate air, so it's warm air. But if they're on their rack, whenever I bring the heater and it's that side of the room, they'll congregate or they'll start to move to their side of the tank where that heater's at.
Right? No, Reed, you didn't miss the Jose Reyes, and it's Jaime. It's Jaime Reyes, you turd. That's the Blue Beetle from DC Comics. So, who replaced Ted Cord, who was my favorite Blue Beetle, but Jaime does a really good job. That's why I want Blue Beetles. Yeah, I think I have a heater stuck on the side of my tank. And they okay, I get it.
Aaron asked if I give him calcium.
Yeah,
like a cuttle bone. I don't, but I'm one of the additives into the food product that I have is D3. So it's already it's in their high protein diet.
See, there you go. Would they even use it? I guess they would, to kind of regrow some damage to their shell or something, their exoskeleton.
No, because they don't there's no
they don't molt.
I actually had one. Yeah. Here's an interesting one. I had one. I don't know what happened to it. Maybe in transit, or I didn't even notice it when I got it. But on the back end of the carapace, or the, I guess you call it the rump. I don't really.
Sure.
In between the segments where it looks like it comes together and it's got like a dip, it was missing it had a hole in it, and you could see all the way into the side of it. That dude lived forever. I didn't want to sell him. Anytime I'd sell him, I'd make sure I didn't grab him. But that guy, he lived for about a year and a half with that big hole in him. And I mean, it was a decent sized hole that you could see down into him. I mean, because for the most part, the whole back end of it looked like it was hollow, and it was just like a crevice. I mean, if I wanted to, I could drop dirt in there or whatever. But I mean, that with a hole in it, that dude lived forever. God. I was surprised.
That's crazy. And yeah, they're just indestructible. It's weird what these guys can come up with. What is rod as a small tenebrinoid? The novice. I have no idea what that sentence is. I have no idea what this means. And I've been in this hobby a while. I don't know what you're talking about, Rod. That's not on you. That's on me. He must be talking to are you talking to somebody else, Rod, or is this us? Don's a true homie now. That means he upped the ante on Patreon. So thanks, Don. That's the best. I don't remember
is it one of your levels?
Yeah. There's ISO buddies. There's homies, true homies. I forget all the. I just am shocked people give me money to do this. I love it. Yeah, I have them all written down. I think.
Substrate. So before I changed up the substrate that I have now, it was just straight isopod substrate that I would normally use for the isopods, which is all just organic, broke down material without any sand. So they don't necessarily need sand because they were perfectly fine. I just felt like the sand was better for them. And I found it at, like I said, Home Depot. It was topsoil. I opened up a bag and I was like, well, it's got sand in it, so let me give it a try. So I have them on that, and they're doing fine as well. I'm pretty sure there are people out there, like I said, that are keeping them as cleanup crews that are using straight sand. And it's where they come from. So they could I don't necessarily think that that it is a benefit or is it detrimental. I don't know, but it could go either way, whether it's a need or not.
Yeah, I wonder if you could do. You could easily set up a tub with some sand on one side. It's not like they're going to bulldozer it around.
Well, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because even when I feed them, like I'll take a scoop of the food. So I have a spoon. I call it my isopod crack spoon because I've had this spoon forever. It's shaped a certain way and I love it and it works for me. So I take a spoonful of that and I drop it into their tub, and it, it's just a mound of it. And you could wait 30 minutes and you come back and 30 minutes later and it just looks like it was just a horde came through and it spread out everywhere. And all they do is they just start going through and they're digging it all out and come back and just eat it. And, a day and a half later, it looks like it wasn't even in there. I mean, so they clean every bit of it.
If they're going to eat that sand, they're at it.
Yeah.
Luch is on his business. Yeah, this is my little crack spoon right here. Can you even see it?
Oh, yeah.
I got this whole set of like laboratory spoons. This is one for my isopods that when I give them.
It's way bigger.
I bet. When I'm testing out supplements or new things for them that people send or recommend, I'm like, let's try this on a little piece of charcoal. Yeah. See how it goes.
I thought I'd lost it. I took it to the Arlington show one show last year, and I got back and I started doing maintenance in my shop, and I came home and I told my girlfriend, I was like, I lost my spoon, and she was like, what? I go, I can't find my spoon. And
did she just grab you like, babe, it's gonna be all right?
Like, no, she goes, oh, I'm so sorry, baby. So and then I got online and I was like, oh man. So I reluctantly ordered a different spoon, and I got it in, and I was like, it's not the same. And then probably like 2 weeks later, I was going through some of the stuff I had taken to the show, and I was putting everything away, like all the dry good stuff. I opened up a box, and it was sitting at the bottom. I was like, oh, I came home, and the first thing I told myself, she goes, "You have a good day?" I said, "I had a great day." She goes, "What happened?" I go, "I found my spoon."
Maybe we'll talk about it another time, but spoons have a lot of symbolism in my family, so I understand that the connection to a spoon.
I'm gonna get on ISO Buddies when I get to my shop tomorrow. I'll get on ISO Buddies. I'll take a picture of my spoon, and I'm just gonna put the spoon.
That's all we need. That's all we need is that spoon.
Everybody's going to start taking pictures of their spoon in the comments.
Let's do that. We'll make a spoon thread tomorrow, Ben. Get on that spoon thread, or whenever you get to your shop. Wait for Ben to do it, you guys. We'll have a big spoon thread. I'll have my tiny one and my regular one. Yeah. Laboratory grade. I have the teeny spoons. I got a Crate and Barrel. Yes. Perfect. The Spoon Buddies. Now we're Spoon Buddies. That sounds a little different. That is a different tone. Spoon Buddies. I mean, yeah. Ben's a good hugger. Ben's a good hugger.
Dibs, big spoon. That's it.
I mean, you've seen me. You've seen me, Ben. I don't make a good small spoon. I'll tell you. Yeah, I just think these guys are so cool, and they're so accessible, and such an easy, like, first-time invertebrate. So if you're looking for those, that first time to pull the trigger on, even if you get them wild caught, they're probably still going to live at least a few years with you.
Yeah.
And you have all kinds of experimentation you can do with it, how they're and whatnot.
I wish they were a lot easier to breed and being more readily available in the hobby as far as being, not being wild caught. But like I said, I haven't seen anything, and nobody's really done any studies on what it's done to their to their population in the wild. But who's to say? I mean, I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but being that they're wild caught, it keeps their population booming because they're constantly reproducing, because of the food that's out there and what they're trying to do to the area to keep it clean. I don't know. It's just like I said, I haven't seen anything or anybody said, hey, I went out and death feigning beetles, there's none to be found, because every year they're constantly, being found. And anytime I go out and I find them, they're there.
Well, all those guys that are wild caught, like you have your velvet ants, you have the death feigners, pretty much everything lives in the desert. People are just scooping them up. And I mean, nobody's out there catching 10,000 velvet ants, but you know what I'm saying? Like they're pretty readily available. All these things, I never hear anybody, I couldn't find one. I went specifically looking for death feigners and I couldn't find one.
But and it's I said, I had about 800 of them, and I mean it's taken me almost 2 years to get down to the 40 that I have now. So even if I were to say, look, I'm going to go collect 800 of them or 1,000 of them, I'm still going to probably have them for another 2 years or 3 years before I have to collect more. So not to say that somebody else hasn't gone in last year and collected, but if it's every other year, then I think the population is able to recover enough that, that they're still going to be available.
Yeah, they're not that popular. And like you said, they're pretty widespread too. So it's not like they're in one town in Kentucky, just off town, just in the suburbs or outside the suburbs. They're not worried about their habitat destruction as much. I mean, obviously, eventually, but we're not worried about that at the moment. Like you were talking, this is a good segue. Last time we talked about your trips to Thailand, where you, to be honest, Ben, the first time you came on the show, I didn't know who you were until about a day before the show. I had no idea. I was like, oh, he's isopods.com. That's awesome. And then it occurred to me that if you got that website name, you were clearly somebody in the hobby. If that website was available when you got it, that's crazy. So then I did a deep dive, and I think we talked about Jupiters, and you were the guy that found the Jupiters, if I'm not mistaken. Jupiters or Lemon Blues? It was Jupiters, right?
Jupiter, yeah. I was the first. I found Jupiter, but I was also the first guy that imported Lemon Blues into the U.S.
Okay, but you found the Jupiters, like physically found them in the wild. Yeah. But then you went back like a year later, and there's like habitat destruction or overharvesting, and you couldn't even find them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a couple years, whatever it was. Like that's a totally different thing. Like these things are living on. How big was the area you think that you found the Jupiters in that you think was their like range?
I would probably say for them, it's probably in the neighborhood. I would probably say about 500 square feet.
Okay.
Is their their whole habitat?
I was thinking like a couple acres, and you're talking like 2 of my yards, and my yard is tiny.
Yeah. And I mean, the benefit for them, though, like for those guys, is that it's not just so much that it's like 500 square feet here, but they also got some height because it's on on a mountainside. I just, the thing about it is that people know where they're kept. I don't know how far they go from there. I just know that when I found them, like I knew where I started, and then I
Yeah.
kept going further and further along until I didn't find any more or didn't see any more, and then I worked my way back. And I know that that area was very small, and I can only I could only get up so high, and then once you got to a certain point, it's just, I mean, flat. You can't even
Okay.
get up that far, and I don't know as far as going over that area. So it's it's just one of those things. But yeah, I mean, dead feigning beetles are found in a much bigger area, much bigger space, um, and
Not a lot of traffic. They're not $400 a beetle. Like like no one's out there with a snow shovel,
well,
just like
and
get
then
them
the
into
other
the
thing,
truck.
yeah, and then the other thing is that, like, I think for the most part, people that go out and they collect, or they go out and they're looking, or they might find one or two here and there. They're like, okay, cool. The difference with like Thailand is that you have a population that they see the value, um, that's carried by the isopod, and then they think, I want to be part of this, and they just go out and collect
Yeah.
however many they can find and keep going and keep going and keep going because they see the dollar sign, which is not a bad thing. It's just,
Yeah.
there's no there's no end in sight for them. They just keep going because that's
The
just
only
what they
yeah,
know.
the only end is when they run out of ice spots, like that ice
Yeah,
spot. Then they
yeah.
go 500 feet this way and find a different one.
And
That
I mean, that's why I've said before, like I won't import Jupiter anymore. I won't import Ambers anymore. And it's, when I know, like, when you see them hit the market and people start offering them,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't carry them, so they're coming in from somewhere, and 99% of the time they're brown boxed in mass, and all they're doing is feeding the source.
Yeah.
And they're just, they'll turn around and go, how many more do you want? You want 1,000 more? And if they can go find 1,000 more, they'll go find 1,000 more, and until somebody says, no, I don't want any more.
And that'll
So
just wipe them out. So
yeah, and just wipe them out, which
it's
is
one of those
like
things
I said,
that's
it's heartbreaking for the most part. But it's the nature of the business at this point. It's the nature of the hobby.
it's all wild animal hobbies. They're all exotic animal hobbies. It's the whole
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing. It's not like isopods are the first. I do think we have a lot better luck and a lot better practices and communication in the isopod hobby at breeding, at captive breeding. I do feel like there's a lot of collaborative thought and experience sharing. I've seen
Well, I
that.
think so too. I think I don't. Um, it's even like with this talk here, trying to talk about how it's done, and what I've heard and maybe what other people have heard as far as death feigning
Yeah.
beetles. I mean, the wealth of knowledge when it comes to isopods is growing, and it's constantly growing. I consider it like anytime new practices come out, it's a living document. It's constantly evolving and changing because the isopod hobby really, it's years and years old before even the big boom with rubber duckies. Keeping dwarf whites and powder oranges and orange scabbards for a long time, way before.
Yeah.
So it's been around. It's just now gotten more in depth and more involved, and the hobby itself, the community itself, has grown exponentially. Even within
Yep.
just after the pandemic, it's grown exponentially. So, I people getting online and dropping tips and tricks and hobby or habits of how they're doing it and what they're doing, and um, it's just one of those things where I think you can't go wrong with sharing the information, because we can always change it. We can always go back and go like, I did it a little bit different, or yeah, I use what you said, but I also did this. Um, Being able to do that in isopod hobbies is great because nobody's chopping anybody's feet out and going, oh, you're wrong. I've been breeding ball pythons for years and you just don't do it that way. It's not like that with the isopod hobby, which is
I
great.
always I always hate that. I always point back to dart frog people because you know what? Show me a dart frog person that's not going to tell me I'm wrong about everything I do to my face, and I'll show you a winning lottery ticket.
Well,
And
the one thing
that's
I would say that the dart frog hobby, that I applaud them on, is the idea that you don't crossbreed. For the isopod
yeah,
hobby, I think we have to take that same standpoint, especially when we start talking about keeping, you know, Lavis with Scabber and Scabber with powder orange. And of course, you're always going to have people that have, dwarf whites and everything. To me,
Yeah.
biosecurity is a very big thing, and it should be. Everybody
Yeah.
should be concerned with biosecurity, and not just a matter of like cross-contaminating into from one tank to another, but the idea of what you're doing with your substrate. I mean, I'm not a big proponent of the USDA, but the big thing about the USDA is they're very concerned with the isopods getting out and getting into the local areas. And I think we as hobbyists and keepers have a responsibility of making sure that that doesn't happen. So it's like you have to be willing to do everything possible to keep your isopod in its container. And then once you're done with it, once you're changing out substrate, what you do with it after that, I mean, that is your sole responsibility. If you are not reselling, which, I mean, you don't have to, but
Yeah.
if you're not reselling and you're just keeping them from yourself, you have a responsibility to the community that you're in, to the isopod community, to everybody that has come before you and everybody that's going to come after you to do the right thing. And that's, to me, that's a no-brainer. I mean, even without USDA or Fish and Wildlife breathing down our necks, that's something that's it's across the board. I mean, that's why people get mad if they go like, they get on Facebook and they say in the local area, somebody found a ball python over here. Well, how did it get there? Somebody lost it or got out somehow, or somebody let it go. It's the same thing for isopods. We have no reason to be letting things out into the wild, and we have every responsibility to make sure we're doing the right thing. Same thing with even just death feigning beetles. If you don't want them anymore, you're not just going to take them outside and throw them outside. I mean, that's irresponsible.
It's bad. Just freeze them. If you don't want them anymore, just throw them in the freezer, throw them in the oven, whatever. You got to dispose of them. It's the hard part of the hobby. Or find someone else who wants them. I've had more rescue animals in my care than any animals I purchased. Find someone else who wants them. Find somebody else who's interested. Ship them to them. I mean, good Lord, do something. Don't just let them go. The only animals I've let go here, and I say this not even loosely, so I captured, when I first got into isopods, I captured a bunch of Armadillo vulgare in my yard. And then after they got so big, I just sprinkled them around basically the neighborhood. I was like,
well, believe it or not, that's a big no-no as well.
That's a no-no?
Yeah. That's why when people post up, like, I'm going to go out and look for my own vulgari. Okay, great.
Yeah.
But once they're in captivity, I mean, it's considered that they pick up other microorganisms. They in mass, because they're in such a small area, it changes the dynamic of the habitat. And then you take that and you're taking it and putting it back outside. It's almost tantamount, believe it or not. And I'm not trying to dog you. It's
no, that's, hey, I'm about admitting my mistakes.
I have a cat, and every night I let my cat outside. Well, your cat's being destructive because your cats aren't native to the area, so they're going to go out. Cats are
the worst fucking animal on the planet for that. Like, I love my cats, but they are inside cats.
So, like I said, as responsible keepers, I mean, we have the responsibilities on our shoulders. Now, I say this with all sincerity and everything. I don't consider myself the foremost expert. I'm not the end all be all. I don't have all the information. I make mistakes just like everybody else in keeping and in the hobby. Yeah. But I'm always looking for, and I always welcome people that are going to give me feedback. I always want, somebody's tips and tricks or what they're doing differently, and how I can change what I do to benefit my collection. Just because as it would be irresponsible for me to go like, oh, this person over here that only has this doesn't know what they're talking about and they're full of shit, and I'm not going to listen to them. That's irresponsible, because what happens if they got a booming population? I'm like, mine's dying. Now I look like the ass because I didn't want to talk to them, or I didn't want to take their information. But even as that person and myself, we all have responsibilities to go like, hey, what are we doing differently? And put that information out there. Same thing with blue death feigning beetles. How are you getting a breed? Why aren't you putting it out there for other people to find out and figure out? So that way people aren't complaining about like, oh, they're all wild caught. Well, people that are breeding them aren't telling anybody how to take care of it or how to make it happen. So that way they aren't wild caught.
That's like us getting at reptiles, trying to build a big enclosure in the Mexican, what is it? It's a green Mexican lizard, mountain skink or something. I can't even think of it. I wanted them. So the wild ones are emerald. What is it?
Do
you know what it is? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh man.
If you guys know what I'm talking about, it's a lizard that's semi-arboreal. It's kind of arboreal. The scales on it, Abronia. Yes, Abronia. And yeah, so just the people that had a problem with it breeding them in captivity was the problem was that the captive bred are blue. They're not that emerald green.
Yeah,
like, it's a better color. What are you complaining? Like, we still owe it to the reptile to captive breed it and keep it, so the population in the wild isn't decimated, because you can literally walk up and just pluck it off a tree to collect it. But yeah, there's all that responsibility. It's just another example. Like, captive breeding is the way all the hobbies should wind up.
Well, I'll say this too. Even with death feigning beetles and I mean, case in point, isopods, don't give up. You can't give up. So for me, the reason why I say that is I was just in my my shop 2 days ago, and I had almost given up on Cubaris species R13, and
Okay.
I've had it for so long, and I brought it in twice, and the first time I sold a few cultures and had no idea on how to keep them. I kept them like regular Cubaris, and my group died. So I was like, you know what, let me try it again. So I brought another group in and I sold a few cultures of those. And then I kept quite a few. And then slowly but surely they started to die off. And I was like, all right, here we go. It's going to be one of those species that we just can't keep in captivity because you can't figure it out. And then I think one of the last times I checked, I was probably down to like 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
Like, all right, they're going to live their best life with me, and that's going to be it. And then I would go in, I would, put some food in there, water it, and then close it up. I really wouldn't dig around or do anything looking at them. I was just like, eventually I'm going to look in here and I'm going to look around and there's not going to be anything. So 2 days ago, I went back into that container and I was like, you know what? I need to do some maintenance on this tank. Let me take a look at it, and started looking through the leaves and under the bark that's in there and the charcoal, and it's thriving. I think I counted about 40 of them, and I was just like, wow.
And what did you do different? Nothing?
I left them alone.
That's it. That is the key to breeding isopods, people. Don't look at them.
Yeah.
None of mine bred for months. For months, none of my isopods bred. And then I stopped. I got bored with them. And the next thing I knew, my populations were gigantic.
Yeah. Let me see if I can pull up this picture, see if you guys can see it.
That is the number one thing. I don't even know what an RT32 is.
It's R13. So let's see if you can see it. See if it'll.
Oh, your goofy.
I could bring it up.
Your background thing is screwing it up. You can
I'll post
see. You guys
up.
can look them up. Yeah, you guys can look them up.
Post them up. Sure. But basically, they call it the ugly duckling. So
That's funny.
It looks like an ugly rubber ducky, but it's got an orange head, a brown body, and then it has like a little bit of a white tail. And then some of them will be like black head, black body, white tail. They all come in like these different colors. And I mean, they're cool. I liked them. R13 was like, holy smokes. It looks like the next cool thing. So it almost kind of looks like a cross between a rubber ducky, honestly, a rubber ducky and a panda king.
Okay.
But like I said, I couldn't keep them. I thought they were going to produce like panda kings, and I'm like, hey, these are going to be cool. They're going to be all over the hobby. But they just wouldn't breed. But like I said, I finally dialed them in, I guess, and left them alone and gave them enough food on their own. And I think I counted 3 separate generations in there. So I'm like, finally.
That is so wild. Well, congratulations.
But I know I'm going to leave them alone for like another 3 or 4 months and see what happens.
Well, that's one of those species that they'll stay, the price will stay up for a while because they're hard to breed. They're hard, but you're doing it now. Yeah. So now there's, you can tell other people, what's your tip? Don't look at them. Just don't look at them. Throw some food in there. Maybe get a little spout on the top. And you just pour it in without doing anything. Actually, that might be a good idea. Get a little funnel to go with your crazy spoon. Just punch a hole in the top. Good to go. I can't get over how much that's the tip. And that is the first thing people will tell you when you get into isopods, like leave them alone. Yeah, don't look at them 5 times a day. Don't do it. So that is the number one tip, you guys. Stick with that and you will have gold in your isopods.
Don't give up. And I mean, the fact of the matter is, even like Blue Death Feigning Beetles, just try different things. Take away the fact that they like rotting wood and figure that out, and figure out when the right time to flood a tank is, and how long to let it sit there, and what to feed them, and how long to leave them alone before they drop eggs and everything like that. It's just don't give up, because eventually we figure it out. Believe it or not, I mean, we're all collectively smart enough to figure things out. It's just our nature. But I think that's one of the big keys.
That'll be the next step. We'll get a group together that of like-minded individuals to compare notes and see what they're doing that maybe works, maybe doesn't.
Yeah.
Check out some boxes. Check some boxes off. I don't know about checking out boxes. Sometimes the show gets away. Yeah, that's a great. I think that's a perfect note to kind of end it on. Does anybody else have any other questions about the Beatles? I think we did it. They're all off to the races talking about R13s now.
Yeah, I'll post a picture on my Instagram and let you guys see the different stages of them.
I think it's the one I was trying to get people to call them Indian corn. And
candy corn.
That's what they reminded me of. that weird like multicolored corn you get for decoration? Yeah. So I was like, oh, these kind of, but they're not really multicolored. I'll tell you
what, I'm not gonna lie. When I flipped over that one piece of wood and I saw a small, manca, and then I saw one that hadn't even gotten its color. It was still white. I was like, I honestly, it was like inside I did a little celebration. I was like, man, I can't believe I just did.
Did it take you back to like when you first bred isopods?
Yeah.
Like your first big project, and you were like, I love that you can get that feeling again from the isopods. I love that you can recapture, because like when my God, what was my first one to breed? My Parakai were the first ones, and I think they showed up with like 7 gravid females or something, because I had them 2 weeks, and all of a sudden I had 70 out of.
It was almost the same feeling. It was almost the same feeling that I got. So when I first started doing tarantulas, I bought, and then I got into roaches. I bought 4 rhino roaches that were just babies.
Okay.
And at the time I was married, and I told my wife, I was like, I bought these roaches, and she's like, what are they? I go, they're rhino roaches. She was, well, how much were they? And I was like, they're $400. She was, well, how many are there? I said, there's 4 of them. She's like, you bought 4 roaches for $400? And it's like, yeah. I said, it's a long-term breeding project. And then fast forward 6 years later, I produced the first set of rhino roaches, and I was like, wow, I did it. It was like a long-term thing. And then that same feeling that I got when I looked underneath the wood and saw the rhino roaches, the babies. And then when I go in and I see R13, I'm like, man, still get it years and years later.
Reliving that dream. Rhino roaches. You were the first guy to get those in the hobby?
No, I wasn't the first guy, but for me,
okay.
But that was back in, so I got them probably 2011.
Okay.
And then fast forward 2016, 17, I produced my first set of babies, and I was like, yeah. And I finally got my colony big enough, and I moved to Thailand. I sold my colony at the time for like $3,500. Yeah. Those are ones that I wish I could get back, but
the rhino roaches?
Yeah. I don't know anybody that sells them anymore. So anybody's got any?
I'm gonna ask around. Yeah, I'm gonna ask around.
Rhino roaches, let me know. And
I think I know 2 people, so I'll ask around and see. I might be wrong. I don't know a lot about roaches, but I think I've heard that. I've heard that topic come up before. My brain's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
You don't work with any other desert beetles, do you?
No, those are the only beetles that I keep.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, we don't have a beetle expert on today. We'll get Beetle Guy on here eventually now that I know how to contact him. Yeah, my wife, I don't usually tell her what I spend on stuff. So she gets mad about like, you guys are all talking about like $400 bugs. My wife gets mad if I spend like $35 on a colony of anything. She's like, oh, why don't you have cool ones like this? She'll find them online. Like, look at this cool ice spot. Why do you have that? Because you won't let me off the leash. That's why. That's why Panda King's like the best I can do. She's a fan of the isopods now, and my daughter is too. So we're gonna get one of those marble run things for the aficionados.
There you go.
Because they stay balled up for like 2 days.
Oh yeah.
So they're kind of the death feigning isopod.
Yeah, I mean, they make noise, so.
That stridulation scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
The first time they did it, I was like, what just happened? And I was expecting it. But yeah, as soon as I open the bin, all I see are the balls. Like they immediately roll up.
Yeah.
That's all they do. But yeah, some of the prices people are getting on some of these things just blows my mind. But then I talk to people that are putting the work in to bring them into the country or to distribute them or to breed them. And it's like, okay, it makes sense. It makes sense. And they shouldn't go to somebody who can't afford them and put in the effort to have them.
I mean, it's not that they can't afford them. I mean, because at any point in time, anybody can have money. They come into money and they can afford whatever. I think the idea behind it, again, but like I said before, is that if you put a monetary value on it, it gives itself a value to a point where somebody can go like, I spent a good amount of money on these and I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to figure these out.
That's kind of what I was trying to say. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, to me, that it's just the nature of the business. Now, fast forward a couple of years later, or 5 years later, of course, you're not going to sell them for the same amount, especially if they're being bred, and that's the whole point. But it's the same thing, like I said, with rubber ducky. They should always hold a value, and that value, when you start decreasing that value to a point where it's you're giving it away, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing the hobby a disservice, just because if you can't have enough space and enough room to keep your colonies going to a point where they're good to sell, and then you sell them, and then you go, okay, I'm going to hold off on selling them. If you're not rotating it around like that, and you're just going like, I'm selling it because I need the money, and it doesn't matter how much I sell it for, it's dirt cheap because I need a couple bucks.
Yeah.
You're doing yourself a disservice. I mean, like I said before many times, time versus money. Anybody's time has value to it. And if you discount your time because you just need to make a couple bucks, you're doing yourself a disservice. My time is very
tough one. That's a tough one. Because I think that's the thing with iSpot hobby that I kind of hate, is everyone who becomes an iSpot keeper becomes an iSpot breeder, or they think they do, because 90% of the species will just go crazy that you can get as starter species. We'll just breed and breed and breed and breed.
Yeah.
So now what do you do with all of these? Like, do you sell them or try to sell versus the guy who is already established in breeding, and try to match those prices and match that? Or do you just try to dump them? Or what do you do?
It's a double-edged sword. I mean, you could dump them and, sell them in, 10 counts, 5 counts, or whatever you're selling them for next to nothing. Or you can go to guys in the hobby that have big collections, because I sell in quantity all the time. I have people asking me for, wholesale numbers all the time. So it's like guys like me, even if you have, other species, I'm going to buy them in numbers because I need to. So what's the difference if you sell 10 for $5, or if you sell me 100 for $50? I mean, I'm just making up numbers. It's not.
No.
I'm just saying the idea is quantity. You sell them, the quantity of them, for a certain amount of money, rather than just selling like, I'm going to sell a few for nothing. To me, it just doesn't make sense.
I hear you. I totally hear that. And I know for everybody that was listening to that part of the conversation about selling cheap iSpots and wasn't imagining in their head a dairy cow, shame on you. Shame on you, because it's a dairy cow. You know that isopod is a dairy cow.
Well, I mean, the dairy cows have value as well. I mean, there's times where I go to shows and I bring 20 cultures of dairy cows and I sell out of them.
You can sell out of those in 20 minutes. Like they're
so
I think they're almost equally responsible for the hobby as duckies.
Well, it's the same thing with any of them. So like powder blues, powder oranges, dwarf whites, dwarf purples, dairy cows, orange scabbers. I mean, when I go to a show, and even online, I sell them online and in good amounts, that it's like, okay, people go out and they'll sell them for, like I said, 5 counts for $1, 10 counts for $1. I'm like, you have the ability to do so much more, not only for the hobby, but for yourself, but you discount your time.
Yeah, because you could sell those for.
I can't tell you how valuable your time is. That's up to yourself. But if your time's worth $1, because you got to think about it. How long did it take for you to breed it? How much money did it cost for you to feed it? how much time and effort in your household or wherever you're keeping them to keep them warm, to keep them watered, to keep them fed. How much time did you put into that?
Yeah.
Right. And then you go, okay, look, I'm going to sell it for $5 and they're going to pay shipping. Okay, cool. So maybe even you overprice your shipping, you make a couple bucks. So let's say you do it for $10. You got to pack it. So now you need a container. You need something to put in the container. You need a box. You need styrofoam. And then you go, I need to go to the USPS. I got to pay for the shipping. I got to put all this stuff together. And then I got to go over there and I'm going to waste my gas and my time. How much does all that cost? It should have a value, but you just value yourself at $5.
Yeah.
So are you really making money?
You're basically, if you're doing $5 to ship, you're out money. You're just out money.
Yeah. I mean, and then you go, oh, well, I'm doing it for the hobby. Okay. I mean, I get it. Yeah.
Like somebody wants those 10 pods dead on their doorstep. Like,
if you're doing it for the hobby, then just say, look, I've got 1,000 isopods that I want to give away if somebody wants to pay for shipping. That's doing it for the hobby. But if you're saying, oh, I'll do it for $5, well, your time's worth $5.
That's kind of how I ran out of duckies, is I just gave them away. I literally just gave them away people that wanted them shipped, or I just brought them to a show. I didn't realize what I was doing, and now I'm like, I think I have 4. So they could recover. They could recover. They have a cool setup that I don't really know. It's duckies. I don't really know how many I have because I haven't looked under the dirt.
At the end of the day, I'm not telling anybody how to run their life or how to run their business. It's really up to them. To me, it's just like I said, I look at it a certain way, and that's how I kind of put everything in perspective for what I do. You don't have to follow that. I mean, even at that, I mean, if anybody listens to it and they walk away and they go, well, Ben's full of shit and he's an asshole. Okay, cool. I mean, I don't have a problem with that either. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah, well, I feel like if you just listen to Ben say all that and you're busting out because you think he's an asshole for saying that, I don't think you're saying that to just the average schmo that has isopods that wind up breeding for the most part, and they don't know what to do with them. I'm interpreting it as looking at it like this is the time and effort and energy and costs that breeders put into their animals, and it's got a value, and you have to keep that value and maintain it, also for the good of the hobby.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're always going to have fly-by-night people. You're always going to have people that come in and feel like I can make a lot of money doing this, and then they realize that like there's a lot of effort that goes into it, just outside of breeding, and then they go like, "Oh man, this is such bullshit," and they unload their stuff. Okay, cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It happens in every hobby. It's just those people that want to diminish the big time breeders and the people that are actually trying to do something in the hobby for next to nothing. I mean,
yeah, and that's the detriment. That's what'll wipe out a hobby for a while, or like
you just write it out. I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing at this point too, because I think the hobby has gone into a direction. You're like, all right, after the pandemic, a lot of people have gotten into the hobby, and a lot of people are keeping and breeding, which is great. It gets more eyes onto it, and it gets more. The expansion's a lot bigger. So we touch a lot of different places now in the hobby that we normally hadn't, and it'll continue to do that. And then again, it's a cycle. We'll cycle through it, and then people will come out, and I'll still be here, still doing it. There'll be other breeders still doing it, and then those people will walk away. And I have, like I said, I'm not the expert. I'm not the guy that's got all the information, but I do have the ability to say, look, I was in the forefront of things. I was the one doing these things many, many years ago when people had no idea what these things are. And it's like, these guys that have been doing it for a year or two, and they're building up their collections. Great. I've been doing this for years, man. And there have been people that have come and gone that were big breeders. And they'll continue to do it. Somebody will build themselves up, and then before they know it, they're gone. I've seen it many times, not even just in isopod hobby, but in the tarantula community when I kept tarantulas, in the roach community when I kept roaches.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I go back to when I first started 20 years ago in the reptile community, that's how long I've been doing this. So for me to be here 20 years later doing something, it's just going to evolve into something else. So
yeah, and advocating for the hobby and advocating for the animals. Like, there's the different kinds of breeders. There's the flipping, the flippers. There's the guys that are in it straight up for the money, like it's all business. And there's the people that love what they do, and the business is kind of like not on the side of it, but it's hand in hand. You know what I mean? And those are the guys I try to get in and talk to, because that's the culture that I think is paramount for all of our hobbies. We need that culture for our hobbies to survive, like all of our exotics. And yeah, just to keep that going. It's just wild. I don't know, man. Yeah. We got off into some like philosophical thing here tonight. Isopod philosophy.
Before we get off, I don't know. I mean, I've got time. I'm not trying to rush.
Yeah, no.
Just to remind you guys, if you guys want to send me a message at ben@isopod.com, just send me your information. I'll get you out a couple of samples of Pod Delight. And like I said, it's on the website now. You can still buy swag on the website, shirts, hats. I've just put a bunch of stickers on there today. Yeah, I mean, all the support you guys want to give me, thank you. You can guys go look at Instagram, like, share, follow. I'd appreciate any bit of it. Any comments, any questions, any concerns, I take them all.
I think Tennyson is challenging me to name all the isopods in the hobby. So
I think we've gone over this before.
We have.
And I mean, I wish there was some way I had some way to sway this. I don't.
You really don't. I'm sorry.
Nobody does.
No one's listening to me yet, so it doesn't matter. But
the thing about it is that, like I've said before, in Thailand specifically, they name things after their favorite thing. That's just how it is. I mean, they name their kids after their favorite thing. Because if you go to Thailand, I mean, times that I've been there, like I'll go to a restaurant. I'll frequent a restaurant because they have really good food, and the waitress is really cool, and their kids are running around. And then, hey, Ben, hi. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh, let you meet my kid. This is Nescafe. I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, my kid, Nescafe. And this is my son, Watermelon. And I'm like, this is how they name their isopods. Okay? I'm not joking.
There's no joke. That's what makes it awesome.
Because believe it or not, there are a lot of females that run around in Thailand, and their name is 100% porn.
The girl's name is porn?
The girl's name is porn.
Like that's the English version. So in Thai...
No. They have Thai names, and they're very long, unpronounceable, but they give them their pet name. And the pet name is usually given by a family member of something that they enjoy the most, what their number one thing in life is. And this is my niece, and her name is Corn.
Oh my God, that's a different culture. And someone mentioned earlier, like, they need more regulation. You're going to regulate that country for their isopods. It's not happening, you guys. I'm sorry, Thailand's not getting regulated for their animals.
Tennyson was bringing up another thing as far as genes.
Yeah.
Let me put this out there, okay? This is the way you have to think about it. The genus is whatever they think it is. They don't have microscopes. They don't have field guides. They don't have anything, right? But the benefit that it gives the hobby is that if you think about this from a very big perspective, from the big picture, Cubaris is one of the best species out there, and it is the only species that is legally presentable to USDA and Fish and Wildlife that they will allow to bring in on an import. What happens after that is up to us or up to anybody else that gets it in their collection. But if somebody comes to me and they go, look, I found this isopod, and here's a picture of it, and here's what I'm thinking I'm going to call it. Well, you're going to call it Cubaris, whatever. And that's what I'm going to put on the paperwork to import it legally. Because that's just how it has to be. Unless somebody can tell me something 100% specifically, this is what it is. It has to come in as Cubaris. Outside of that, when it comes in and but the hobby does its due diligence to go like, oh, I found it. Here's where it's described. Here's what it is. Okay, cool. Then we'll go down that road and it'll be reclassified and we'll go like, this is what we know. It was brought in as this, but this is what we know it as. The genus was Cubaris, but it's actually, Trogdilio. are, whatever that's going to be. That is why you see these species come in as what they are.
That's why we have 1,700 Cubaris species that are getting reclassified all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Dude, I was just talking about this 3 weeks ago. You need to watch a show and call me right away and be like, dummy, this is the real deal.
And I'm not trying to take away anything from Tennyson. I think the work that Tennyson has done and the effort that they're putting into trying to find these things out, I'm fucking all for it. I love it.
Yeah.
I will promote it. I mean, same thing on Isopod Exchange. I pinned that post and I'm like, do your thing, buddy. Do what you do and let's put it up here and let everybody see it. Because I have no problem with that. So it's just a matter of us trying to get it into the hobby and propagating it and breeding it and then being able to go like, all right, now we have enough of these. Do we need to send it somewhere to have it looked at under electron microscope, or do we need to have it, opened up and dissected and figure out what it is? Then so be it. But the idea is to get it here, propagate it, and then get it to that point where we can say, yes, 100% specifically, this is Cubaris, this is that. Cool.
I don't know what this is going to be, but this is my chef read. We need to get a Cubaris chicken and waffle. I'm down. We got to find it. Let me know what you're bringing in.
There's what is it? I think it's Pamphobedius. Pamphobedius chicken spider. So, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that.
I don't either. Let me know what you're bringing into the country. Give me a sneak peek. I'll slap the label on it and you sell it. That's all I want to know. That's all I want. That's the only part I want of it. Tennyson, if you're getting really involved in this stuff, or you are, feel free to put all your information up on IsoBuddies in the Facebook.
It's on Isopod Exchange as well.
Isopod Exchange, I'll hit that too.
I agree with you, Tennyson. I agree. I mean, is there a way to make a conscious effort to try to figure some of these out? I mean, I know there's that the American group, the Myriapod group that's doing that. I don't know how, as a hobby, we approach them and go like, hey, let's, can we start reclassifying, or how do we make the effort worth the juice worth the squeeze in reclassifying Cubaris? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm that guy. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know that that's a hill I want to die on either, but because I don't look at them that close either. I see people that can sex Armadillidium, and I'm like, cool. That's awesome. I think that's great. I'm just gonna go, okay. I can barely sex Hoffmannsegei, so I mean, I'm not, those Europods are no joke. But I think it's awesome. I don't know that it's interesting. It's interesting. Cubaris juglones. Oh my God, I would be so excited. I have to discover something. I have to discover an Armadillidium that isn't classified yet. It could happen. Does it come down to the genome? Yeah, I guess you could do DNA tests, right, to see.
Yeah, I mean, there's that process that they go through in order to do that. Like I said, that's at the sacrifice of the isopod itself. I mean, if there was a process to make that happen, I could see going down that road, but there isn't even a defined process. I mean, then you're asking somebody that has their hands full with whatever projects they do already to go, hey, I want you to take this on too.
Yeah.
And can you have it to me by next week? Because I've got a whole community, a hobby that's waiting for this. It's one of those things where there's no defined process. And I think it would take honestly, it would take almost a grant in order to be able to have somebody's, put in place to make that happen on a timely manner. Otherwise, I think you're waiting years.
Yeah, I know it'd be piecemeal. But and then, of course, too, you have the problem that, like, we know where Jupiters came from because you were there. Yeah. But there's these species that who knows where the hell they came from, because we have a general region.
Well, that's a part of the problem too, is even with collectors in Thailand or China or whatever, they're very, very protective of their information. I mean, trying to get them to go like, hey, where did this come from? To even get it down to a province it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, we talked about that last time, I think we spoke.
Yeah, they just don't like giving up that information because, again, they see it as monetarily Then they go like, hey, if I give this out, then I've got, 20 other people out on the side of a mountain or in a cave collecting, my moneymaker.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, if you're the guy that found rubber duckies, if you're the guy that found whatever, the next 500 feet away, lemon blues. If you put a lemon blue and a Jupiter in front of me together, I wouldn't be able to tell you which one's which. I wouldn't. I mean, I could tell you they're different, but I wouldn't be able to be like, oh, this is the one and this is the other. I don't know enough about them. Yeah. Okay. If you showed me first, maybe. But I look at pictures of them and I'm like, I don't know. Is that, unless someone tells me which one it is. Mostly dissection. That's a lot. Is there still like two guys?
The cost of the animal, like, what happens if let's just play this out. What happens if I import, let's just say, Cubara's chicken and waffle, nice. And I only got 10 of them.
Okay.
And I go, hey, I need to have this properly identified. And they say, okay, we can identify that for you, but we have to dissect 5 specimens. Now I only got 5. Because I'm going to send these other 5 off to these guys so they can dissect them. And I'm not getting those back. So now there's only 5. And then you go like, well, what's the value on them? Well, it's a lot because there's only 5. And those 5 are either staying with me or whoever's buying them is going to pay a lot of money for them. Because, then you have to pay for import fees and you have to pay all this other stuff. I still got to pay the person that collected them. So, it's tough. It's a slippery slope.
That's wild. Because, like, we all know how I feel about 5 counts. The odds of you getting a culture out of 5 is low. I know you just said you recovered your R13 23s or whatever, your R2D2s, but
I did the same thing with Mardi Gras. I had a culture of Mardi Gras, and there was probably like 30 of them, and it wasn't one of my favorites. I was like, I'm gonna try it, and I got a culture in, and then I got down to 2, and I was like, I guess it wasn't meant to be. But I mean, now my culture bounced back up, and I'm getting numbers up, and hopefully within the next couple months, I'll start listing them on the website again as available. So
that's cool.
It's not impossible. It's just,
I love that color scheme in any shape of isopod we get. The Mardi Gras, Witch's Brew, what's the other, Magic Potions, the first one, remember? Yeah, or what's the ones that I have? Orange Dalmatians.
Orange Dalmatian. So is
that what it is? They look like Magic Potion.
The original American line of Magic Potion.
Oh, okay.
Orange Dalmatian.
I can't tell the difference. So I sent them to somebody, and they were like, as Magic Potions, and they were like, oh, this is Orange Dalmatian, actually. I was like, oh, sorry. Like, I was just sending them as a gift. A Google Doc would be good. Oh, no. Okay. I mean, you could post it somewhere. Tennyson, you could post that Google Doc somewhere. Have somebody be able to download it or something. PDF.
Send it over to Wally. I mean, Wally's got a good base of people that are downloading his documents.
Yeah, spreadsheets.
He's got a good Google Doc. Maybe put it on the second page of his Google Doc of isopod breeders.
Damn, I feel like there's a whole second interview going on with Tennyson right now in the comments section. This is wild.
Yeah.
He must be a good listener.
Like he's doing both. I applaud the effort that Tennyson's made, and that was the main reason why I pinned it on Isopod Exchange, because I was just like, there's some effort here. Obviously, it needs to be shared, and what better place? I mean, I'm sure there are better places, but I mean, what better place to start than Isopod Exchange? We've got almost 12,000 followers on it, and it's everybody complains that Isopod Exchange, we're supposed to be on and be able to sell stuff, and it's just not set up that way anymore. Isopod Exchange was originally started as a sale group, but when Facebook changed their rules, we took all the sales away, and it's been a lot easier to maintain the Facebook page that way. But to me, Isopod Exchange is you exchange information, really what it is.
It's a different kind. I think that's more valuable than Isopod. And I'm sure people sell stuff on the sides through messages or whatever on that using Isopod Exchange anyway.
Yeah.
They do it through IsoBuddies. They do it through every group, and we're strict no sales.
And I mean, that's the thing. It's like everybody complains about it, but we're not the only ones that do that. It's just, that's just the direction that they make us go in. And
if you want to keep the group,
Yeah, well, what's so hard about getting into somebody's DMs and going like, "Hey, do you have this available?" I mean, to me, when you start doing sales on a Facebook group or you start opening it up to that, you just have a lot of needless information of people that just want to post up their for sale list, and then you
Yeah.
have to, if you're not in the space or the time frame of wanting to buy something, and you just want information. Why have to go through all that all these for sale posts?
Right.
And,
Which are
and then on top of
like,
that,
who cares?
you open up the groups for scammers. They're going out
Yes.
and they're like, "Hey, I got 500 rubber duckies for $20. Hit me up. Send it to me, friends and family, because my cousin's trying to get paid over here." And it's just like I said, it just you open yourself up for a lot of stuff that just it's needless.
Yep. I mean, I just had a scammer contact me about axolotls. So they're out there too much. But I get it, man. I'll tell you guys a tip right now. If you're on a Facebook group about iSpods and you see beautiful macro pictures of somebody's iSpods, message them. They're selling those iSpods. They're not there because maybe Tanner Stainbrook is just posting them because he likes to take pictures of iSpods. But I promise you, his are for sale too. So reach out. That's why they're there.
Yeah. Hey, Luke, try to search it again.
Try to search what?
He was saying that he couldn't find Isopod Exchange. I just had to update one of the settings.
Oh, okay. It's Mark. He's just ridiculous. Wait, what? I don't know what Luch is talking about. I don't scroll up enough when I see a comment. Tanner is awesome, Tennyson. He is awesome. One of the best people I've met in the hobby. I have too many friends that are just isopod or internet people that are like, I trust them more than my in-person physical friends. So, yeah, Tanner's undoubtedly a great dude. Guys, I'm staggered. Like, this went around and around into 14 different directions, but every bit of it was more valuable than the last. So, I'm kind of blown away today. So thanks for coming on, Ben.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for asking me. Like I said, I was hoping to just give some information, some valuable information about, death feigning beetles that everybody can use, and hopefully open up a world of future breeding. I mean, that's really what it is.
And I feel like the real takeaway is like, let's collaborate about these things. Let's compare notes. Let's put information out to each other so we can get this accomplished in other projects, not just blue death feigning beetles, but whatever, your R13s or,
I said, don't give up. I mean, if you get in your mind you want to do it, just keep trying and keep going, because I mean, eventually things will come together and it'll work out, and you go like, holy shit, I did it. I mean, that's the whole point of the hobby itself.
And that's an easy one. These guys are easy to care for, easy to keep. You can just keep trying it. Get a couple dozen and put them in different tanks.
That breeder nut. That's it.
Correct. I mean, the beetles are doing it. Let them have a spot to, make more beetles. My brain keeps going over setups that you could do, tricks, like somewhere they could lay the eggs that they can't get back to.
Yeah.
With like a mesh or something. I don't know. That's for another discussion. But yeah, man. Thanks so much.
Pleasure, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, again, everybody, thank you. If you want to send me a message, like I said, I'm ben@isopod.com. Send me your information, and I'll get you guys out some samples of the new Pod Delight. Hopefully, it works for you. And I mean, it's been working for me, and just getting that out there for you guys. I really appreciate it.
I'm going to do a feeding episode with all these little samples that I still have some left of. Unfortunately, I've mixed them all together into one bag recently. But we could try yours. I'll get some more. So guys, thank you so much, Ben. I'm going to bump you out and do my closing thing. And I'll be in touch to get that sample from you. Oh yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right. You have a good one.
You too. Ben's always a treat to have on. I'll tell you. Well, it's been twice now, but if you get to meet him in person at a show, go. Definitely worth the discussion. And to just watch him educate people at the show about whatever, like the toys he was having. He'll educate you about the toys. He'll educate you about the iSpods, the Beatles, whatever. Guys, you saw Don say he's a real homie now, or a true homie. I forget the title. We have our Patreon. it does help. It helps support and get us to do stuff that, well, us. It gets me to be able to do stuff I wouldn't normally be able to do and share with you guys, which is kind of the whole point of what we're doing, right? This is like our 3rd year, so we're really excited to be growing. We're almost at 400 subs, so close to 400. So like in 10 years, if you're still around and we're actually monetized, that'll be a good thing. I'll make it worth your while. So, guys, it was a good night. Check us out on ISO Buddies at Facebook. Tennyson, I'm probably going to reach out to you because I have ideas now. The rest of you, awesome. Luch, I might hit you up for those duckies as well. Or as you said, your rubbers, which I'm going to call them Luch rubbers from now on. So I'm 9 away from 400. All right, guys, you saw this. I will see you next week. Next week we are off. It's my anniversary. 15-year anniversary. I can't do a show that night, guys. I'm sorry. You guys are not worth the heat that's going to bring me. So, but I will see you in 2 weeks. I think, I don't know. I'm going to post what we're doing and what we're talking about. So I have 2 thoughts of what it is. What is that, the 16th? It can't be the 16th already, is it? The 16th, we're going to be talking to Kevin Nasser about dung beetles. No, back-to-back beetles, guys. So bring your poop jokes because we're going to have a ton. So you have 2 weeks to get poop jokes ready. That's your homework. We'll talk to you later, Jaglones. Have a great week. And